I'm David Flint, and this is Conversations with Conservatives, broadcasting from the Gold Coast, through SafeWorlds TV, through the Gold Coast, Queensland, Australia. And my conversation today is with the Honourable Rev Fred Nile, who is the Deputy President of the Legislative Council in New South Wales and is a very long-serving Member of Parliament, having first joined the New South Wales Parliament in 1981. Rev Fred Nile is a master of many portfolios. In fact, this was a comment made to me by a constitutional professor who lamented the difficulties of small parties in covering all portfolios, but said there was one exception, and that was the Rev Fred Nile, who seemed to have an extraordinary ability to range across the portfolios. The Christian Democratic Party, which the Rev Fred Nile leads across Australia, is putting together a campaign for the coming federal election. Fred, how's it going?
It's going very well, Professor Flint, and I'm very pleased to speak to you today. I've just been travelling to every state, every capital city, and launching our Senate candidates campaign to give them my own personal support and encouragement. And we've had a wonderful time all the way from Brisbane down to Hobart, from Sydney to Perth.
And where do you think you're going to have your greatest successes?
Well, we're running on the theme of the conservative, the true conservative that you can trust. We know there is a lot of doubts about the current Liberal National Party under the Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull as to whether he's truly conservative after removing Tony Abbott, who was a true conservative. And of course, the Labor Party is far from being conservative and is in bed with the Greens. So for those voters who want to make a good choice, we're providing an opportunity for the whole population of Australia that they can vote for Christian Democratic candidates, our Christian Democratic Party candidates, who will be on the ballot paper in every state for the Senate and also for many seats, such as in New South Wales. We have 47 candidates, one for every one of the federal electorates in New South Wales. We have the same in Tasmania. We have candidates for the 5 seats in Tasmania. So it's quite a record that we've achieved, and we're looking forward to a positive response by the people of Australia. I'll see on the ballot Christian Democratic Party, in brackets, Fred Nile Group, as I'm the founder of the party, and our public relations people have advised us it's helpful to keep those two names together, Christian Democratic Party and Fred Nile. Some people say, well, I know about Fred Nile, I don't know much about the party. Well, Fred Nile and the party are one and the same.
You campaigned on that basis, did you not, for the 1998 Constitutional Convention?
That's right. We were the only party, because I drafted our Constitution, and we have 5 objectives, and one of the main objectives in our party constitution is to uphold and support our constitutional monarchy. I don't think too many political parties have that in their constitution, and so when the Republican referendum was proposed, we treated it as an election. I mobilised our party right across Australia to man the polling booths and hand out how to vote slips to say to vote no to the Republic. And we had a resounding victory, especially in New South Wales. We had, from my memory, the highest vote, no vote in Australia. So we really torpedoed the Republican movement, and they've gone away licking their wounds, wanting to come back again, but I believe the people of Australia have spoken, and both parties, and especially the Labor Party, should accept that and not keep talking about a republic. There won't be a republic in Australia.
Reverend Nile, you are clearly a party which is socially conservative on such issues as abortion and euthanasia and so on. On economic matters, are you also a conservative party?
Yes, we stand very strongly for free enterprise. It's one of our basic economic policies. In other words, we've made it quite clear we're not a socialist party. We're not running under sort of a Christian cloak to cover up a socialist regime. We believe that the best society is one where there is free enterprise and where governments promote free enterprise, promote our economy, promote jobs, and the long way, in the long term, that means that the people have a chance to have a job, receive income, and share in the prosperity, which is what's happening in New South Wales. New South Wales, under our influence, our participation in the government of New South Wales, has now made New South Wales the leading state of the Commonwealth. On every ground that you can measure, the economy, jobs, the unemployment rate, we are now the most successful state. I won't boast and say we take total responsibility for that, but our party, our Christian Democratic Party, has played a major role in working with the coalition government, the Liberal National Party, and with the Premier, the Honourable Mike Baird, to achieve the best for this state. And I'm confident that we have achieved that.
One of the surprises of the Turnbull government was in the last budget, and that was what was seen by many traditional Liberal voters as an assault on their savings, that is, the introduction of significant and retrospective changes to superannuation. What will be the position of any senators that you have, any members of Parliament that you have, in relation to the proposed changes to superannuation?
Yeah, well, we've made it very clear, Professor Flint, in all our pre-election publicity, we don't masquerade or cover up what we stand for, and we've made it very clear we are totally opposed to any changes to the superannuation. So we are in a direct conflict with Malcolm Turnbull on that issue, and obviously any similar changes by the Labor Party.
So you would, your senators would block that in the Senate, would they?
Definitely. Now that's our objective. We know we can't become the government, not at this stage. I wish we could. There is a Christian Democratic Party government in Germany and some Scandinavian countries. But realistically, our first objective is to have members elected to the Senate, and if it pleases God, that we might have the balance of power between the Green, Labor on one side, and on the other side the Liberal National Party, and then we can exercise that balance of power in a very honest way for the benefit of the people, not for the benefit of our party or any other party, but for the people's benefit. So we've done that on many issues, particularly the coalition government's been very keen to lease or privatise a number of government instrumentalities, and we supported those in principle. We believe they would be more efficient, but we've also amended that legislation to always have a protection for the workers' jobs. So I'm very pleased, and yes, I know the unions are very pleased.
Good.
The government has accepted that amendment. They have 5-year guaranteed employment.
Thank you. At this point, we'll go to a break. This is David Flint, and the program is Conversations with Conservatives, and I'm speaking to the Honourable the Rev Fred Nile. I'm David Flint, and this is Conversations with Conservatives through SafeWorlds TV, and I'm speaking with Honourable the Rev Fred Nile. Rev Nile, some years ago when I was a young man, I was required, when I was conscripted into the army, to swear an oath of allegiance to the Queen. Later, when I became a lawyer, I was again required to swear an oath of allegiance to the Queen, which I did with great approval. I'm wondering whether the abolition of the oath of allegiance, for example, for new immigrants, was an error, because it was replaced with a pledge, a rather empty pledge. They took away God and religion from the oath, of course, but also took away swearing allegiance to the Queen of Australia, a woman, and I'm wondering whether that was a serious error on the part of the federal authorities.
I agree with you, it was a serious error. I believe it has affected our whole multiculturalism, that the people who come to Australia must have a sense of unity with the rest of Australia, to be part of it. And that was symbolised by that oath of allegiance based on our constitutional monarchy, which has been the foundation of our nation from the very beginning of settlement. So I hope and pray that it will be restored, but I imagine, though, Mr Turnbull, being a Republican, won't move in that direction. So perhaps in the long term we need to replace Malcolm Turnbull with another Prime Minister. You
might recall, Reverend Nile, that at the time of the referendum about 2/3 of the politicians were in favour of a republic, but it was rejected by the Australian people. It was rejected in every state and rejected in 72% of electorates. Does that suggest to you that a significant number of members of the federal parliament, the recently dissolved federal parliament, are somewhat out of touch?
Yes, they have their own personal views, and they're making no attempt to represent their electorate, what the people of Australia clearly want. But sadly, I think we do have a lot of members of parliament that have come in from what they call the moderate wing of politics, or I'd call it the more permissive or
hard left
side of politics. Yes, half-baked. They don't have too many conservative bones in their body. So we do have a problem. That's why we started our party a number of years ago, to bring that balance back into politics, to influence both the left and the right, influence the Liberal national parties and also the Labor Party, because I could see they were both going down the same pathway, virtually, in parallel. And so that's one of our main purposes of our party, was to bring that conservative Christian voice back into government and to represent the people, truly represent the people, which we've endeavoured to do. As I said, with the referendum, we campaigned very strongly on the no vote, and the people manned the polling booths and so on. And we'll do that again if it comes up on a future date, which I hope it won't.
As I look at the Constitution, education is essentially a state matter. But since the federal authorities have got heavily involved in education, standards seem to have fallen.
Yes, well, they've made those decisions as well. They've removed what I think is a lot of the positive material and brought in some shocking courses. One they call the Safe Schools Coalition course, which confused children, saying that you don't have a fixed gender. Well, yes, it's supposed to be removing bullying, but you know, in fact, I have evidence already that it's causing bullying, because in some schools that have the course and have special days when the girls are supposed to all wear purple, Christian girls say that we'll just wear our uniform. They're now being bullied by the other girls. So it's very sad what's happening at that school level with children. They should be put under that pressure to identify with some of these trends. But we do know the lady who designed that course, the Safe Schools Coalition course, Ros Ward, has boasted that she herself is a Marxist, and that she'd love to see the red flag flying over our state parliaments. Now that's the kind of mentality that's behind some of these programs. That's why I call it the Unsafe Schools Coalition course.
But wasn't it a course which was approved by, introduced by Labor, but then approved by the coalition government?
Yes, it was funded by the Labor Party. And when the coalition were elected, they just continued that funding with a view to letting the money run out. I was very disappointed that Tony Abbott, he should have axed it the day they were elected. It's a new government, new policies. There's no need to rubber stamp any of the old Labor policies, especially policies from the left of the Labor Party as well. So that was disappointing. Now, of course, the Labor Party is totally committed to the Unsafe Skills program. The Victorian Premier, who's very authoritarian, has announced it will be mandatory for every child in Victoria to go through that course, and so on. So we're facing a very difficult situation in these coming days. That's why this election is very important, that people who perhaps are sympathetic to the Labor Party have to realise that's the sort of programs you'll have in the schools, as well, of course, the whole issue of same-sex marriage. The Labor leader, Mr Shorten, has announced within 100 days, which is October the 10th, that will be D-Day. I call it the D-Day, the death of marriage. He's promising he'll legalise marriage between two men or two women. And again, I don't think that's a popular policy with the grassroots of Australia. They just want to keep traditional marriage between a male and a female.
Do you think it should go to a plebiscite?
Well, that's what the Turnbull government has put up. The plebiscites are very vague. It's only a poll. It's not compulsory. It has no rules. So we don't know what the question will be. There's no funding for the yes case and the no case. That's why our party personally, we support a referendum under the normal referendum rules and regulations. The question should be designed and approved by an independent panel, that it's quite accurate, not a slogan, and also money should be allocated to give reasons. It's a very important issue.
Yes, the Constitution provides for a marriage power. It says that the Parliament may make laws for the peace, order and good government of Australia with respect to marriage. Now, the originalist view of the Constitution would be that means marriage according to the ordinary meaning of the word at the time the Constitution was adopted. We'll come back to that question. We're being reminded that we must go to a break now. We'll come back to that question when we resume, if we may. This is Conversations with Conservatives, and I'm speaking to the Rev Fred Nile.
Hello everyone, I'm Paul Higgins, and welcome to SafeWorlds TV, the global marketplace, the world leader in internet TV and semantic search, the home of free enterprise, the level playing field that all the world can use for electronic business. With SafeWorlds TV, every business in every country of the world can now be involved in the world economy. There are no barriers to entry. Even the poorest countries and the smallest businesses can be involved. The system is simple. Every country divides into 12 headline channels. Every channel is a gateway to an unlimited number of related community channels. Every community is a social network and a marketplace to sell products and services. There is no limit to the number of businesses that can be connected into a marketplace. There is no limit to the number of products you can sell. All our channels and marketplaces are designed to keep you entertained and to help you do internet business at a cost that everyone can afford. The amazing semantic technology that underpins SafeWorlds TV allows us to deliver this amazing system to the world. It allows us to accommodate millions of TV channels and marketplaces and to link them together into the global marketplace. The vast global marketplace that we are building is the final piece of the electronic global village. This is the ultimate achievement of the internet. What you see here now is only the tip of the iceberg of semantic services that are coming. Come now and see what we've already got. Choose any country of the world, then select the headline channel that you want to explore. Just point and click and follow the logical tree structure. We think you'll be amazed at what we already have in SafeWorlds TV. When you're ready, click on the button at the bottom of the screen and register to become a user. You can start immediately to create your very own internet TV channel. Enjoy the experience. I'm Paul Higgins for SafeWorlds TV.
I'm David Flint, and this is Conversations with Conservatives, and it's coming to you through SafeWorlds TV, and I'm speaking now with the Reverend Fred Nile, who's the leader of the Christian Democratic Party throughout Australia. Reverend Nile, one of the issues which will clearly arise in this election, although we haven't seen much mention of it so far, are the legislation, the two pieces of legislation rejected by the Senate, which triggered the double dissolution, and these relate to industrial relations, particularly those in the building industry. When that legislation is presented to the Senate again, what will the position be of the Christian Democratic senators?
Well, we strongly support that legislation, and our senators will support it. That's one way to control the violence, standover tactics that are occurring in some unions. There are unions that are very law-abiding, such as the Shop Assistants Union. I've had a lot to do with them over the years. But I think those involved in the construction industry have become lawless or law unto themselves. And I believe we need that commission to have the power to investigate complaints from both workers and from employers where they think there's some physical standover tactics occurring.
One of the issues at the moment is the attempt by the Victorian government to unionise the volunteer bushfire fighters. And this is creating an enormous upset in Victoria. They've had to dismiss the board which governed these matters, and there seems to be a serious attempt to effectively unionise the firefighters, so that for a fire, if there's a bushfire, for example, there have to be a certain number of full-time firefighters with them who are members of the union.
Yes. I think that's a disgusting development by Premier Andrews, who's acting as a dictator in Victoria. He's already done it in regard to scripture classes. He just simply cancelled those in all Victorian schools. Now he's enforcing his will on the 60,000 or so volunteer firefighters in Victoria to unionise them and put the union in charge of volunteers. I think they have two roles to play. They complement each other. The firefighters union deals mainly with fires in the suburban and city areas, in the towns, and the volunteers deal with the bushfires. I think they should have their two specialised sphere of operation maintained, and there should be no attempt to force them to come into a union situation. I'd be tempted, I was thinking this morning, because of Andrew's attitude, perhaps all the volunteer firefighters should say, if you don't stop on a certain day, we will stop fighting fires in Victoria as a threat. They wouldn't do that, of course, but to say to the Premier, you've got a massive problem on your hands, you won't have anyone to fight the bushfires. So leave the bushfire fighters alone, let them carry out their role, which they've done now historically for over 100 years.
Well, that's very clear. Can I go now to a matter of more international significance? And that is the strong view that you've presented over the years, that in relation to refugees, in relation to the persecuted, you have argued, have you not, that when we look to the Middle East, you say that the most persecuted group in the Middle East are the Christians, that therefore they should receive preference in relation to immigration. Is that your position, and why is it that your position?
Definitely. Well, we understand, David, that one Christian is dying every 5 minutes in the Middle East. Not a Muslim, but a Christian. There is some Islamic State and other organisations. They're targeting Christians, and they're dying in their thousands. So they should be a priority for our refugee intake. I hope eventually there will be peace and stability in the Middle East, and these folk could then return to Syria, Iraq and other countries. But in the meantime, I believe their lives are the priority. We must protect them, and they should have a priority. I can't understand the government's talking along the lines, well, we'll bring in 12,000 Muslims. It's ridiculous when Christians are crying out for protection and safety.
Do you have any position in relation to immigration from the Islamic countries? I notice that the Australian Liberty Alliance says that there should be a moratorium on immigrants from the Islamic countries unless they belong to a persecuted minority.
Yes, well, the Liberty Alliance copied our policy. We announced that policy in the last federal election, a 10-year moratorium on Muslim immigration, and that was done with the purpose that in those 10 years we don't want to see any terrorism conducted by Muslims in Australia. If you do have those terrorist actions, then the moratorium will become indefinite. Instead of 10 years, it'll be indefinite. So it's a way of saying to the Muslim community, you have to clean up your own house. Quite often, individuals know who's planning a terrorist attack. They must report those persons to the terrorism hotline, so the police can act against those individuals. If the Muslims allow it to happen, then all the Muslims will suffer with some of these restrictions on immigration and so on. So I hope they will take note of our warning, and we'll have a unified cooperation between Muslims and Christians to do all we can to stop any terrorism on our Australian soil.
You've also had a policy for some time, as I understand it, in relation to halal certification, have you not?
Yes, we've been very concerned over the years. This halal certification has slipped into our mainstream society, where everybody's now buying food and there's a little symbol on it indicating it's certified halal food. And those companies have to pay a fee to the certifying company. I gather there's about 3 certifying bodies who are insisting on the certification and that the food must be halal. They then collect the money from these companies, and often it's products which have nothing to do with really food dealing with Muslims, like Cadbury's chocolates, for example. What's that got to do with halal food? So these 3 organisations are collecting millions of dollars in this, I believe, an illegal tax on the Australian people. They then use that tax to build mosques in Australia and even in Indonesia and other countries. So I believe the federal government should say the certification must be controlled by the federal government. There must be one approved body, and the funds must only be used for positive reasons, for education or something in Australia, and certainly not for building mosques or for any, and certainly not for terrorist activity.
And on that point, we seem to have found the clock is defeating us. You are obviously playing a significant role in the campaign. You've got candidates in all Senate seats, and you have candidates in a number of electorates. All electorates, was it, or many electorates?
David, all around Australia.
Good. So on that point, On that point, we'll bring the conversation to a conclusion, and thank you very much, Reverend Fred Nile, for your participation in this series. Thank you.